My husband said he wanted me to quit my job so I could take care of the family. But what he really wanted was a full-time maid he didn't have to pay. I gave up my career thinking I was supporting our marriage. Instead, I became invisible until I uncovered his darkest betrayal. What I did next shocked everyone, including him. My husband said he wanted me to quit my job so I could take care of the family. But what he really wanted was a full-time maid he didn't have to pay. That line kept echoing in my mind as I stood at the sink scrubbing dishes for the third time that day. My hands were raw, my back ached, and for what? No paycheck, no thanks, just more demands. When we first got married, things were different. Mark was charming, supportive, and always talked about building a future together. I was working a stable job as a medical assistant at a local clinic. It wasn't glamorous, but I loved the work, the independence, and the pride I felt bringing home my own paycheck. Then came the change. It started with little comments. "Don't you think it's selfish to work so much when we're trying to start a family? Wouldn't it be better if our kids had a mom who was present, not always exhausted?" At first, I brushed it off, but the pressure kept building. Every time I worked late, he guilted me. Every time I mentioned a promotion, he brought up how it would ruin the balance. Eventually, he sat me down and said, "Babe, I just want what's best for us. If you stayed home, we could finally focus on building a real home. I make enough for both of us." It sounded loving. It sounded like he cared. And I naively believed him. I handed in my resignation a week later. My coworkers were shocked. My manager tried to convince me to take a leave instead, but I told her I was making a choice for my family. I truly believed that. For the first couple of weeks, it felt fine. I took time to reorganize the house, started cooking proper meals, even got back into gardening. I figured, hey, this isn't so bad. But then Mark changed. He started coming home later. He stopped saying thank you for the dinners I made. He started tossing his clothes on the floor and expecting me to clean up after him like it was just part of the job. And if I didn't, "Oh, what else do you even do all day?" That cut deep. He acted like staying home meant I was doing nothing. Never mind the endless loads of laundry, the cooking, the dishes, the grocery shopping, the errands, the emotional labor. I became his personal housekeeper, and he didn't even try to hide it. Worse, he stopped treating me like his wife. No more date nights, no more conversations, no affection. Just orders. One time, I asked him to help clean up after dinner, and he literally laughed in my face. "That's your job now," he said. "You wanted this life. Remember? I hadn't wanted this. I'd wanted a partnership, not servitude." I tried talking to him. I told him I felt like I was disappearing. His response: "You're being dramatic. Other women would kill to be taken care of like this." He was gaslighting me, and I didn't see it clearly until much later. At the time, I blamed myself. Maybe I wasn't doing enough. Maybe I wasn't keeping the house clean enough. Maybe I wasn't present enough. So I tried harder. I cleaned more, cooked better meals, even tried dressing up before he got home, thinking maybe I'd win back some of the attention I used to have. But nothing changed. In fact, it got worse. Mark started getting phone calls he wouldn't take in front of me. He'd suddenly need to run out for work stuff on weekends. He started wearing cologne to the gym, and one day, while I was washing the windows, I saw a text flash across his phone screen. "Can't wait to see you again. Your bed or mine?" My heart dropped. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the phone. But I didn't confront him, not yet. I needed proof. So I started watching. I checked his messages, tracked his movements. And what I discovered made me sick. He wasn't just cheating on me. He was bringing her to our house. While I was out grocery shopping or picking up supplies, they were in our bed. The bed I made, the sheets I washed, the home I maintained like a fool while they laughed behind my back. That was the moment something in me snapped. I had given up everything: my career, my independence, my dignity, for a man who saw me as nothing more than a live-in maid. I knew I couldn't let it go on. I wasn't just going to cry and accept it. I was going to fight back, and I knew exactly where to start. I didn't cry when I found out, not right away. Something about seeing that message, "your bed or mine," just flipped a switch in me. Maybe I had already cried too many tears. Maybe I had just finally hit my limit. Whatever it was the woman Mark married, the one who trusted too easily, who gave up everything for love, she was gone. In her place was someone new, someone smarter, sharper, and more dangerous. I knew I couldn't just accuse him. Mark was the type to lie with a straight face and make me look like the crazy one. I needed proof, solid, undeniable evidence. The kind that would destroy his fake reputation, ruin any attempt he'd make to twist the narrative and give me the upper hand in court. So I started with his phone. He was careless with it. Maybe he thought I was too stupid or broken to snoop. But every time he went to shower, I checked it. I took photos of his messages, screenshots of hotel bookings, dinner reservations under fake names, but always with her phone number listed as the contact. I discovered her name was Crystal. She worked at some marketing firm. From the texts I learned, she had no idea he was married, or at least that's what she claimed. I made a burner email and sent her a message, "You're sleeping with a married man. He brings you to the house. I cleaned the bed I made and the life I sacrificed everything for." Attached were pictures, dates, times, screenshots. She never replied. But suddenly their messages stopped. That didn't mean it was over. Mark got sneakier, started using WhatsApp, deleted call logs. But he was sloppy. He left receipts in his pockets, strands of blonde hair on the bathroom sink, and perfume that wasn't mine on his shirt. And me, I documented everything. I bought a nanny cam and hid it in a flower vase in our bedroom. It had motion sensors, so anytime someone entered the room while I was out, I'd get an alert on my phone. Within days, I caught them. On camera. Together. Laughing. Touching. On my bed. And that was it. I called a divorce attorney that same night. Her name was Angela, and from the first call she made me feel powerful again. I told her everything. I sent her the evidence. She was impressed. "You've already done half my job," she said. "We got to work immediately." Angela said the courts would favor me, especially since I'd given up a job at his request and had been the primary caregiver in the home. Plus, with proof of infidelity and emotional abuse, we had a strong case for custody and spousal support. But I wasn't done yet. I wanted him to feel small, to know I knew, to squirm. So I staged a little performance. One Saturday, I told him I'd be gone all day running errands. I left the house early, just like always. But instead of going shopping, I parked down the street and waited. Sure enough, Crystal showed up 30 minutes later. I waited 10 more, then let myself in through the back door, quietly, calmly, phone recording in hand. I walked right into the bedroom and found them mid-laugh, half-dressed, drinking wine. "Oh," I said, my voice perfectly steady. "Don't stop on my account." Mark turned white. Crystal gasped and jumped up, clutching the sheet like it could protect her from the truth. "Babe, this isn't what it looks like," he started. I held up my phone. "Save it. This is the part where you get to watch the life you ruined crumble around you. Smile for the judge." Crystal started crying. Mark started yelling. I walked out without another word. That night, I moved into my sister's guest room. Angela filed the papers the next morning. Mark tried calling. Texting, emailing, begging to talk. I ignored every message. Then the real storm hit him. Court dates, financial disclosures, custody evaluations, his boss finding out, word spreading among our friends. The pressure cracked him. He showed up outside my sister's house once crying, saying he'd made a mistake, that he was lost and wanted his wife back. I didn't even open the door. Just watched from the upstairs window. I had given him everything, my time, my body, my future. And he gave me betrayal. Now I was giving him exactly what he deserved, consequences. In the weeks that followed, he lost a lot. Half of our joint savings went to me. I was granted full custody with supervised visits, and his mistress. She ghosted him, left town, couldn't handle the shame. And the best part, I got a call from my old job. My former manager had heard about everything. She told me my position was still open and they'd love to have me back. I smiled through tears when I said yes. It wasn't just about money. It was about me, taking my life back, finding myself again, and walking away stronger than I ever thought possible. They say when a woman finally walks away, it's not because of the last straw, it's because she's finally realized her worth. And that's exactly what happened to me. After filing for divorce, moving into my sister's house, and getting my job back, something inside me started to shift. For the first time in years, I could breathe again. I wasn't walking on eggshells. I wasn't second-guessing every word I said or whether dinner was good enough. I was free. But freedom came with its own kind of silence. There were nights when I lay awake wondering how I let things get so far. How did I let him chip away at my self-esteem so slowly I didn't even notice? Why didn't I fight back sooner? The truth is, emotional abuse doesn't look like a slap in the face. It's more like a slow leak in your soul. You don't realize you're drowning until you're already at the bottom. But the moment I chose to rise, that was the beginning of everything. Back at work, people welcomed me like I'd never left. My old manager gave me a hug and said, "You always had a spark. I'm glad you're bringing it back here." That comment stuck with me. I had lost my spark, but now I could feel it flickering again, slowly turning into a flame. Meanwhile, Mark's world kept crumbling. He lost his reputation, a big promotion he had been counting on, and most of his so-called friends quietly distanced themselves after everything came out. The man who once strutted around like he owned the world was now fumbling through supervised visits and pretending to be a model dad for the court. I didn't feel sorry for him. Not one bit. He tried apologizing again, sent me a letter this time. Pages and pages of "I didn't realize what I was doing and I was under stress" and "You were the best thing in my life." But there was no "I'm sorry, I made you feel like a servant." No, "I regret cheating in our bed." No real ownership. Just pity-party nonsense. I burned the letter. It felt good to watch it turn to ash. I focused on rebuilding, not just my career, but myself. I went to therapy. I joined a women's support group. I started journaling again, something I hadn't done since college. Every page I filled felt like stitching a wound I didn't know I had. I stopped questioning if I was enough. I knew I was. One afternoon during a group meeting, a woman asked me, "How did you leave? I don't think I'm strong enough." I looked at her and said, "You don't have to feel strong to be strong. You just have to take one step, and then another, and then you keep walking even if it hurts. Because that's what healing is. It's messy, it's painful, but it's also powerful." The more I talked about what happened, the more women opened up to me, coworkers, neighbors, even strangers online. Turns out so many of us are taught to endure, to sacrifice, to stay quiet for the sake of family. But where was that family when I was breaking under the weight of expectations? Real family doesn't ask you to lose yourself. Real love doesn't require obedience. It's built on respect. I decided to use my experience to help others. I started volunteering at a local women's shelter, helping women find legal resources and safe housing. I even spoke at a domestic abuse awareness event, sharing my story with a microphone in my hand and my head held high. The old me would have hidden in shame. The new me stood in the spotlight and told the truth. And as for my son, he saw everything. Not the affair, thank God, but the tension, the disrespect, the pain I tried so hard to hide. At first, I worried he'd be confused or angry, but over time, he began to understand. One night, as I tucked him in, he asked Mom, "Are you happier now?" I smiled and said, "Yes, baby, I am, and I meant it, because I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living." I learned how to laugh again, to take up space, to say no without guilt. I started painting again, something I'd given up years ago. I traveled with friends. I took my son to the beach and let him bury me in the sand without worrying about dinner waiting back home. One morning, I caught myself singing while making breakfast, and I realized it had been years since I did that. That's when I knew I was finally whole again. And to the women out there listening to my story, if you feel trapped, belittled, invisible, please hear me when I say, you are not alone, you are not crazy, and you are not weak. You deserve more than someone who clips your wings and calls it love. You deserve a partner who builds you up, not one who breaks you down. I lost myself in a man who didn't see my worth, but I found myself again in the ashes of everything he destroyed, and now I'm unstoppable. It's strange how endings can feel like death until you realize they were actually rebirths. For months after the divorce, I moved through life like someone learning to walk again. Every day was a new discovery of who I really was without the weight of Mark's control, without the need to constantly prove my worth to someone who never truly saw me. And yet some days were harder than others. Healing isn't a straight line. There were mornings I woke up feeling strong, and nights I cried myself to sleep from memories I didn't ask for. A scent, a song, a photo buried deep in an old folder could yank me back into the past without warning. But the difference was, I didn't stay there. Instead of suppressing the pain, I faced it. I talked about it in therapy. I journaled it until my hand cramped. I gave those emotions room to breathe, and in doing so, they loosened their grip on me. One night, after putting my son to bed, I sat by the window and stared at the stars. I thought about the girl I used to be, the version of me that said yes when I meant no, the woman who worked 10 hours a day just to come home and cook clean and try to win the affection of a man who barely looked up from his phone. And I whispered to her, "I'm so sorry I didn't protect you sooner. But I'm here now, and I've got you." That moment was a turning point. I stopped seeing myself as a victim of Mark's cruelty and started seeing myself as a survivor of it, a woman who had crawled through the fire and came out not burned but blazing. I poured my energy into things that lit me up. I took weekend art classes, joined a book club, and started running in the mornings, not to lose weight, not to punish myself, but just to feel my heartbeat for me again. And then something happened that I never expected. I started to feel happy. Not fake Instagram filtered happy, but real grounded joy. The kind that sneaks up on you in the middle of a conversation with a friend or during a quiet moment at the park with your kid when you suddenly realize you're not waiting for disaster anymore. You're just living. But then came something I hadn't planned for: love. It didn't happen overnight. And it didn't come from someone sweeping me off my feet. Honestly, I was still a little wary of men. But one day at work, I was partnered on a project with a new team lead, David. He was kind, patient, a good listener. At first, I kept my distance. I wasn't looking for anything, especially not with a coworker. But David didn't push. He never made me feel like I owed him attention. He respected my space. He made me laugh, not the polite kind of laughter, but those deep belly laughs I hadn't felt in years. After a few months, we grabbed coffee, then lunch. Then one day he invited me and my son to a community picnic. That's when I saw it, how he treated my child with gentleness and respect, not like a burden, but a person, a priority. It scared me, because I was starting to feel something again. I told him the truth, that I was divorced, that I had been cheated on, emotionally abused, and that I wasn't ready to fall headfirst into anything. He nodded and said, "Then we'll just walk. No rushing. I'm not here to rescue you." "I'm here to walk beside you if you'll let me." I cried that night. Not because I was sad, but because I realized I had found something I didn't believe existed anymore: safe love. And the more I opened myself to the idea of it, the more I realized how much I had changed. I didn't need someone to complete me. I was already whole. But I also didn't have to fear love. I just had to choose better. David wasn't a replacement for the love I never got from Mark. He was a reminder that the love I gave freely still mattered, that I hadn't lost my ability to trust, just my tolerance for settling. We took things slow, really slow. And whether it works out long-term or not, I'm at peace. Because now I know how to walk away from anything that doesn't serve my peace, my son, or my future. And that's power. Looking back, I sometimes wonder what I would say to the woman I used to be, the one who gave up her career for a man who cooked and cleaned like a maid, who smiled through pain just to keep the peace. I think I'd say, "You're not crazy for loving deeply. You're not weak for hoping he would change. But now, it's your turn to choose you, because we don't lose ourselves all at once. We lose ourselves in tiny, everyday moments, when we stop asking for help, when we stay silent instead of speaking up, when we give until there's nothing left. But we find ourselves the same way in the small wins, the early morning runs, the first belly laugh, the job offer, the quiet confidence that builds one brave choice at a time. Now, when I wake up, I don't feel dread. I feel purpose. I get to drop my son off at school knowing he's seeing a version of his mom who's happy, empowered, and free. That's the legacy I want to leave for him, not bitterness or revenge, but resilience. I built a new life from scratch. It's not perfect, but it's mine. And if you're watching this, sitting in a relationship where you feel small, stuck, or invisible, please know you are allowed to leave. You are allowed to start over. You are allowed to take up space. Your story doesn't end at heartbreak. Sometimes that's where the real story begins. Some people think the end of a marriage is the end of your story, but I've learned it's just the beginning of a new chapter 1 where you are finally the main character. It's been a year since the divorce was finalized. A year since I packed up my dignity, my son, and whatever pieces of myself I could carry and walked out of the house that once felt like a prison. And let me tell you something, I've never been more alive. My son is thriving. He smiles, more laughs louder, and asks thoughtful questions that show me he's growing up in a home full of love, not tension. We've created new traditions: Friday night pizza, Saturday morning cartoons in bed, and walks in the park where he holds my hand like he never wants to let go. And as for me, I've found balance. I've found peace. I don't rush anymore. I don't panic when the phone rings or feel pressure to perform for someone who only saw my worth in what I could do for him. I wake up with purpose and I go to bed knowing I made choices that honored who I am. David and I are still seeing each other. Slowly, thoughtfully. I've set clear boundaries and he respects every single one. We don't talk about forever, we focus on today. And that's enough for now. More importantly, I've made peace with myself. For a long time, I carried shame for letting it happen, for staying too long, for believing his lies, for loving him more than I loved myself. But now I realize something crucial. Surviving isn't weak. Loving isn't foolish. And leaving takes more courage than anyone on the outside will ever know. I'm not embarrassed by what I went through. I'm proud of it. Because I didn't just survive it, I used it. I turned pain into purpose. I turned silence into strength. And now, I use my voice to help others find theirs. Every week, I get messages from women all over, some living a life like I used to, others still questioning their worth. They say, "Your story gave me the push I needed," or "You made me believe I can get out too." And that, more than anything, makes everything I endured feel worth it. I don't know where life will take me next. But I do know this: I'll never go back to shrinking myself to make someone else feel big. I'll never sacrifice my light just to keep someone else warm. I've reclaimed my life. I've reclaimed my voice. And if you're listening right now, if you're sitting in a place that feels small, suffocating, or unsafe, I want you to hear me loud and clear. You deserve more. You deserve peace. You deserve to be seen respected and loved, not for what you do, but for who you are. You don't need anyone's permission to start over. Just take the first step, even if your voice shakes, even if your hands tremble, even if the only thing you're certain of is that you can't stay where you are. Because once you take that step, everything changes. You will discover parts of yourself you forgot existed. You will remember what it feels like to laugh without fear. You will stop surviving and start living. And one day, you'll look in the mirror and smile, not because you have everything figured out, but because you finally chose you. If this story resonated with you or reminded you of someone who needs to hear it, don't keep it to yourself. Like, comment, and subscribe to Family Story, My Husband, for more real stories about heartbreak, healing, and hope, because your story matters and someone out there needs it.